Good afternoon, everyone. Happy Monday to everybody. I hope everybody out there is safe and well. Thank you so much for joining us for Cybersecurity for Entrepreneurs today. I apologize. I realize this is the second rescheduling of this event. So, to those of you that have registered and followed us for all three tentative dates, thank you so much for joining us. It's finally happening. Today is the day. We are making this happen today, and I appreciate you guys. My name's Erica Bracy, and I manage Launch GSU, your student business incubator. As many of you are aware, Launch is the place where the existing entrepreneurs as well as our aspiring entrepreneurs can come to create and work on their own business, collaborate with other members of their business, other potential employees of their business, but most importantly, collide and create collisions with other entrepreneurs that we have at Georgia State University. Membership is available to anyone who is an undergrad or graduate of Georgia State. And of course, one of the benefits of membership is being able to use our 3,000 square foot space, which is downtown. Of course, the space is not open right now. We will be following the guidelines of Georgia State University and hope to get that open back to you guys real soon. But of course, anyone and everyone at Georgia State is available to participate and take advantage of these webinars that we offer. So as you see, we have cybersecurity for today. Tomorrow, we will be doing disrupting your comfort zone. And then on Thursday, I'm super excited. This is our second installation of a Pantherpreneur panel discussion. The first thing I heard when everyone went on quarantine was, what are we supposed to be doing with our business? What do I do now? So we have our entrepreneur in residence from the Entrepreneurship and Innovation Institute, as well as a local entrepreneur. I'm talking to you guys about things that you can do for your business and how to make this time most productive. Last but not least, next Thursday, we have our Spring Entrepreneurship Showcase, where 10 of our Pantherpreneurs are going to spend 2 minutes pitching their business and letting you guys know what they're doing and what's going on out there. Um, so, again, but the reason why you are here today is for cybersecurity for entrepreneurs. And I'm so excited. And I have the pleasure of introducing you to Hollis Hicks. Hollis is an economics major from the Andrew Young School of Policy Studies and is one of the inaugural members of Launch. Hollis joined Launch before I was even at Launch. He's a Pantherpreneur himself and founded a mobile data collection platform, but now works with Adapter Technology Group. Adapter is a Triple Crown awarded cybersecurity consultancy that stores, analyzes, and secures data for clients at the community level, all the way up to Fortune 500 companies. Hollis regularly engages his professional services team to assist clients with their cloud, IaaS, network, and cybersecurity initiatives. He's also working hard to bring Adapter's commercial and enterprise approach to IaaS architecture and cybersecurity to the Atlanta startup community to bolster security posture and implement well architect cloud framework. That is a mouthful. We are very, very happy to have Hollis. Hollis has been doing the cybersecurity presentation for us for the past 2.5 years, and I'm so thankful that his schedule allowed him to participate and be with us today. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and give control back over to Hollis and let him get started. Stop sharing. I'm going to give this to you in 1 second, and then you should be able to go ahead and share your screen. Awesome. Take it away, Mr. Hicks.
Awesome. Thanks for joining, everyone. Let me share this PowerPoint I have with you all. So we can just go through, a quick presentation here on, kind of me, my background, what I built when I was at Launch, as well as, some overall things you can do for yourself and your business that are kind of pragmatic from a cybersecurity perspective. And then, just kind of best practices as well for your own personal cybersecurity hygiene. And then we'll get into the market for security and the market for the cloud, both in Atlanta and throughout the country as well. And Erica, if you would, if there are questions, can you read them? Because I can't see them. Oh, hang on. No, I've got the chat right here. Perfect. Okay. I'm 25 now. This is from last year. I went to GSU, was at the incubator before they renovated the space, kind of the first year that they did that. And we had a good class of companies come through that year. And it taught me a lot about just in general how to validate customers for my startup, validate our idea before we got to working really hard on it. And it prepared me for ultimately what I do now as well. So yeah, I had started a company called Pacify. That was through the GSU Startup Incubator, and we were a mobile data collection platform for clinical pharmaceutical trials. So that sounds like a lot, but really all that means is when they would want to bring a new drug to market, clinical trials would spend north of $1 billion over 8 years, hauling people into treatment facilities all over the country to get their responses on, kind of like 1 to 10, how's your knee feeling? How much pain are you currently in? That kind of thing. And they would have to compensate these trial participants to show up in person and kind of provide those inputs. And we said, why can't they do that over the phone and do it more frequently and easier? So, we use push notifications and a sliding bar similar to how you change the brightness on your phone. And they would receive, trial participants would receive scheduled questions through the app that would say, how much pain are you currently in? Slide the bar and put an input. And then we would, store that data, graph that data, segment it by different demographics, things of that nature for the clinical trials. So we won the pitch contest that first year, and when we launched the application commercially, we were profitable at beta. So we didn't, take a bunch of funding or anything like that. We, were able to bootstrap what we built through sales. So I think there's more than one way to skin a cat. They say there's a lot of different ways to get your business off the ground and get it funded. I think that finding customers is probably going to be the best testament to whether that idea is going to be valid and work, right? Like, will people pay for this? And it's a great way to fund your business without foregoing equity. That's kind of my 2 cents there. I have a lot of question slides in here, and this was kind of meant to be done in person. But I typically we go around the room and I ask everyone kind of about them, their companies and their goals. So maybe while we're going through this, if any of you are interested in seeking some advice or anything of that nature, just think while we're kind of walking through the presentation about what you could ask quickly here through the chat, and I could help you with or provide any value. And then at the end we'll come back to some questions, and I can address those for you if you have any. So we'll start with kind of the overall market for cybersecurity. Let me see if I can move Erica because she's in my PowerPoint. So the average time from breach to detection, and when I say a breach, I mean a company being hacked versus knowing that they have been hacked and having the ability to do something about that, was 196 days in 2018. So think about, we always use the house analogy. It'd be like someone living in your house for 200 days. What would they know, right? What kind of things could they steal? What kind of information would they have on your habits, your lifestyle? That's essentially what these companies, both small and large, are dealing with, is that the average hack where they've been breached, someone's been in that environment for 196 days, walking around to different rooms at night, things of that nature. Essentially, they're horizontally into other databases and systems and architectures within that company's kind of umbrella there in their environment for 200 days before they even know that they've been hacked. And in 2019, firms like mine, large consulting firms like Deloitte as well, we're more of a boutique cybersecurity firm here in Atlanta, but firms like ours have worked with companies in their IT and security departments to reduce that number by 100 days from 2018 to 2019, which is great progress for 1 year. However, 97 days is still too long. Our goal for our clients is that if they're breached, obviously one, you want to start with prevention, but there's no 100% way to make that happen. And most of the security market operates on the philosophy of it's not if, but when. But that, we want to make that number of, the time from breach to detection. We want to take that to not 60 days, but 60 seconds for people, so that they know immediately and they can go ahead and engage what we would call an incident response plan and, shut down access to those systems. There's various steps that they, take in products we deploy and engineers that we loop in and resource, to both mitigate the spread of that hack and to minimize the impact to the business, the bottom line, and the shareholders. So Equifax is a good example. They were here in Atlanta in 2018. The breach cost them $600 million. And then in 2019, one more year after the breach, it cost them an additional $1.4 billion. Sorry, that's 600 million and 1.4 billion. So, think about what that'll do to their stock price, to their shareholders, and to all the people who were impacted whose information was compromised. I think there were 300 million people whose, social security numbers, things of that nature were compromised in the Equifax hack. And a lot of us are probably among them. So, that kind of thing can devastate a business. It can put, good, hardworking people out of a job. It's nothing different than the way that COVID's impacting businesses. That's really kind of the name of the game to prevent those kind of things from happening. And overall, Equifax is a credit monitoring company. They compile credit reports for people. So they have all of everyone's banking data, all of those things. And, for them, reputation is a big thing. They have to, maintain a brand awareness of, that your information is secure with them, and they can, continue to collect that information in order to provide that service, or they go out of business. So that's how much impact these incidents can have. And that's just one local company. So, overall, I think that last bullet point I have is just kind of like a threat landscape overview and whiteboarding what people are seeing. In a nutshell, when we say threat landscape, there's really two things. You have an attack surface, which is any way that someone could potentially hack your business, right? So you have, your network, your infrastructure, and then, I think most critical, your people, your employees. Are they picking up a flash drive that's been dropped in the parking lot and sticking it in their computer? Are that, there are things of that nature, phishing emails. There's a lot of different ways that the attack surface is continuing to grow more broad, and hackers are becoming more and more sophisticated by the day as well. So the threat landscape continues to evolve, but so do our security measures and our capability to mitigate those things from happening. So yeah, I think on a personal note, right, there's just some basic hygiene that every time I do this, I say, spend 30 minutes today, since were invested enough to come and spend time on the presentation. After this, go reassess your applications on your phone and your passwords. Get a password wallet. I have examples of them on the next slide, but even if you do that once a year, you're way ahead of most people. And overall, the application settings is a big one too. I mean, take a minute to think about what talks to what. All of your social media apps have help centers, and most of them will recommend security settings for you. So they'll say, here are recommended security settings. Then there are some things you can personalize, like your location settings and things like that. If you do or don't want them to have that data, I would do it for your subscriptions too. I'd like to do just kind of a personal audit of my subscriptions all the time anyway, because I'll forget, I'm not using Hulu anymore and I'm paying for that. But in addition to that, your security settings with those applications, right? And then the last point, just your digital footprint, things on the internet. I think there's a good quote from the Social Network, Mark Zuckerberg at Facebook, where they said that the internet's not written in pencil, it's written in ink, right? Your digital footprint is going to be searched by everyone. It's hard to get rid of things that are already online that you may have posted or are available via Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, because you're not managing those security settings. It's hard to get rid of them, but what you can do is manage to it. and just be aware of what's out there about you, right? Kind of take control of that digital identity of yours the same way you would, take pride in providing your resume to someone you want to work for, or the way that you convey what value your business is providing to your customers and to people when you're pitching, right? You want to take that same amount of pride in yourself, because ultimately, as you try to grow your businesses, or pursue whatever your passion may be, or your career, that's going to be a huge part of it. That's the first thing we do when we hire people, is look at their Facebook and stuff like that. So definitely, just be mindful of that stuff, of your settings and your passwords. And again, I can't stress enough, get a password wallet. There's a lot of different ones. 1Password, Dashlane, Keeper is a good one. You don't have to, it'll encrypt and hash your passwords for you, and you don't have to remember them. You store them in the wallet. I use it on my computer and on my phone, 1Password, and it's great. And it'll, save you a lot of headache from getting hacked and things of that nature. And it kind of forces you to keep that good hygiene and does it for you. I think here, just some things that you can do as far as your business from a security perspective, right? So those are kind of more personal cybersecurity hygiene items, things that you should maybe be aware of, that are pragmatic, right? Meaning, you don't have to go spend thousands of dollars or hundreds of dollars on these security tools, to make sure that if you're building something from a technology perspective, that you're not out there, you can minimize that risk of being compromised, right? So the first one, if you're coding anything, definitely vulnerability scanning. So, there's one called OWASP ZAP, OWASP ZAP. That's free. And basically what it does is take all of the top 20 known vulnerabilities, and it'll scan the code that you're writing to see if you're subject to those, or if you've been compromised. So if you're building any sort of technology, frequent vulnerability scanning before you release new versions or iterations of that code. If you scale your business and you raise money, or you go pick up customers and you're leveraging a technology-based solution, they're going to ask you to do this anyway. They're going to want to. Go ahead, Erica.
Go ahead and repeat that again. You said OWZAP?
OWASP ZAP. Yeah.
OWASPZAP.
Yes. So
Dot,
OWASP is
dot who?
no.
Huh?
So the tool itself is called OWASP ZAP. I don't.
Got it.
If you Google that, it'll come up. But OWASP. So the OWASP top 10 or top 20, I can't remember which one it is, are the top known vulnerabilities that hackers are using, right? So this isn't going to be some $100,000 enterprise grade vulnerability scan, but you can scan for those most frequent things that people are getting each other with, right? So the tools that hackers are using most frequently, you can kind of scan for those in there, and it'll give you, yep, that's correct, the way you typed it.
Awesome.
Excuse me. And it'll give you remediation steps as well. So it'll say you're vulnerable to this, like cross-site scripting is one, like XSS, right? It'll say, here's how you can remediate this or fix this within your code. So just doing that alone, will put you. It's definitely a value add. Like if you're pitching your product and it's technology based, you definitely want to be able to go to investors or to clients and say, and we're following best practices here. We've also vulnerability scanned this. We have a clean bill of sales, so to speak. You have a clean vulnerability scan to turn around and show a client and say, you're dealing, you don't have to stress out about this being a secure solution when you integrate it into your environment. Because a lot of companies, right, like when we're trying to sell pacified to clinical pharmaceutical trials, they're not just worried about, are we secure? They're worried about what risk are they importing to their environment if they work with our API. So, what risk, how am I increasing my attack service by working with this third party? A good example of that is Zoom, right? So like Georgia State's using Cisco WebEx, definitely a good product. Zoom has had some issues in the public eye, and when we talk about an attack surface, that can be one, right? So Zoom has issues, one with, not to harp on them, but exfiltrating data. So if you're using Zoom, it's very easy to kind of tether into the endpoint and, so to speak, spy on activity going on the network. Beyond that, you hear about Zoom bombing too, where people are presenting something, and it's a charter school that I do pro bono work for. So, we don't charge them, but they're a technology-based charter school, and we help them with their infrastructure and some consulting. And with them, they were using Zoom, and there was an 8th grade class that was Zoom bombed, and the words that were used to describe what was thrown on the screen were violent, racist, and pornographic images that these 8th graders were exposed to. And it wasn't just their school, it was hundreds of schools. And it wasn't even their Zoom meeting, it was a third-party education software that was hosting the Zoom meeting. So the school that I work with had to turn around and tell the parents and all the students, hey, we've had an incident. Here's what happened. It was from a third-party software. Now, you can imagine the parents are like, how could you let this happen to my child? It was their first thought. But, in reality, if you're going to use third-party software, or you're going to introduce any sort of third party, if a customer is going to purchase your product, there's some sort of risk inherently with that. So, you want to do everything you can to kind of CYA and make sure that you're giving people that peace of mind, and that'll help you get that sale, right? So OWASP app's a good one for vulnerability scanning if you're building anything technology based. Phishing is a huge one, right? So just overall, I mean, I work with companies as small as that charter school for free, and then I have companies that are in the Fortune top 20, right? I mean, some of the biggest companies in the world, and phishing is the biggest threat to anyone. Your people, we can spend all the money we want on security tools, but you're only going to be as good as your weakest link, and it's usually a person. So, just checking like the email extension, links, hovering over the link before you click it. Beyond that, at a larger company level, there are products that we sell people that actually detonate files before they're on your endpoint. So if I send Ms. Bracy an attachment and she opens it, it's actually opening it in a sandbox cloud, detonating that file and seeing if there's any malicious stuff on it. If there is, it scrubs the file, and then the copy that you would actually open on your computer or save is clean. But overall, just making sure that when you're getting emails from people or anything of that nature, check the sender, check the links, just be cognizant of the fact that, if you're using your GSU email, you're putting the entire GSU community at risk if you just are opening, random things and whatever. Phishing is a huge one, and still as simple as it seems to be to prevent. Phishing education training has gotten bigger among companies, but just making sure that employees all realize that we have a personal duty to the company to protect that information, right? Or to your own company, your own product, or to the school. So phishing is a big one. And then,
Alice, remember last year when we had the representative from GSU Cybersecurity come in, and he was like the assistant director of cybersecurity for the university, and he failed the test that he set up.
yeah, he failed the phishing test. He is not the first person I've heard of doing that, where they'll set up a phishing test. This is common practice, and they'll send out, malicious emails, not malicious, but to track whether students, clients, users, whoever will open them. And then, it's randomly scheduled, so then they end up opening it. And it's like, a lot of the time I wonder if they really opened it themselves, or if they're just using themselves as the brunt of the joke to kind of be like, look, I did it. It's nothing to be ashamed of, but here's how you can prevent it. But yeah, it's always interesting. That's, I think, all I have on the security space. If you all have any questions, feel free to, I'll address them as they come in. But I'm going to move on to cloud while you are all typing through those. So earlier, America said IaaS, it's infrastructure as a service, and it just means cloud. So, what the cloud market, we can get into that in a second, but what is the cloud? It's your data, your compute, your storage sitting on someone else's computer, essentially. So instead of you having a server in a data center, you're renting space on one that's in a data center owned by Amazon or Microsoft Azure, or Google. And it's, most startups now are kind of born in the cloud, so to speak, because it's cheaper. And you only pay for what you use. You don't have to go pay tens of thousands of dollars for hardware to get your app off the ground. You can leverage the cloud, and there's a lot of offerings via AWS and Azure for startups specifically, where you can get free cloud resources to build technology. But the overall market for cloud, I think we're at $206 billion worldwide, and it's up 18% over the year before. meaning cloud adoption is spreading. You have companies that are breaking down their data centers and moving that stuff to the cloud. It's not to say the cloud is going to eat everything and the cloud is just a data center somewhere else. But that being said, it's a huge part of the market, and there's a major shortage of talent as well. So if you're kind of wondering where career-wise to look after school, either cybersecurity, whether you're sales, marketing, technology side, engineering, there are shortages in both the cloud market and in the cybersecurity market in Atlanta specifically, where those are really, really high job security positions, and they're very competitive compensation, right? Um, so AWS, Amazon owns over 48% of the cloud market, and Microsoft Azure has around, that's probably grown since last year when I did this presentation. Azure is probably more around 25% now, but everything else kind of makes up the remainder of that market. But most people are either in Amazon Web Services or in Microsoft Azure. And we work with both, but again, back to the point, why cloud? CapEx versus OpEx is a big reason. So a capital expenditure, if you're in business classes or anything like that, when I buy a server, a box, that box sits in my data center and I own a capital expense. There's a tax liability for that item. Operating expenses have a different tax liability. It's lower. So an operating expense is like you have your fixed cost versus your variable cost, right? So an operating expense, think of like any subscription. So when they pay their Amazon Web Services bill every month, their monthly bill is an operating expense versus having a capital expense for that piece of hardware. That's really where everyone's trying to take their money in the technology market. That's a huge theme right now. So the cloud is a good vehicle for people to do that. And they're starting to consume a lot of different things that way too. Like firewalls no longer have to be a box in your data center in your rack. You can deploy a web application firewall in the cloud with, on other people's infrastructure. And you have all sorts of different providers you can pick from and things of that nature. Availability and business continuity is a big point too. So if I have all of my data on my server in my rack, that's where that data sits, right? And you might have a backup somewhere else, but in the cloud, I can pick different availability zones. Amazon has data centers all over the world in different availability zones. So I can have some of my data in, on one side of the world and some on the other. So from an availability and business continuity perspective, if that data center was hit by a missile, God forbid, they have it somewhere else. Versus if your, rack gets water damaged or something, you're kind of out of luck if you don't have a backup. And a backup you can deploy quickly and easily, which the cloud allows for you to do. It creates a lot more visibility, and it lets you make changes remotely. So you can do that from anywhere. You don't have to, VPN into that server, be there physically to make those infrastructure changes. And then the last point here being security in the cloud versus security of the cloud. So when your data sits on a server in Amazon's data center, Amazon isn't responsible for all of the security of all of your stuff. They're responsible for the security of the cloud. So that means, no one's breaking into that data center. No one's, hacking their resources, their assets, but security in the cloud, the security of your data that sits in the cloud, the configurations of the firewalls that protect that data, they call them, they have another name for firewalls, I forget. But anyway, those kind of things are your responsibilities. So there's a big breakdown in the shared responsibility model that Amazon calls it. Microsoft has their own version of it, of what your responsibility is versus what their responsibility is. But in the alternative, where you have all of your stuff in a rack at your office on a server, it's all your responsibility. So you can offload some of that security responsibility there too. If I was building a technology product from scratch right now, and in the position I was, which we did this then as well, in 2017, 2016, but I definitely would do so in AWS or Microsoft Azure, and you can get a lot of funds to do that without offloading any of your own capital. So yeah, I mean, how do you use the cloud? A lot of things that we use every day sit out there in the cloud. Most of the, like Netflix, anything like that, they're a huge AWS and Azure shop. Your data is out there in the cloud, whether you're putting it out there or not. But that's not a bad, it's not like an insecure thing, right? You can use cloud volumes to back up your iPhone. You can, you know, we all use the cloud on a daily basis. I think the overall point here is just that I think if you're either considering how you want to architect what you're trying to build, or what kind of industry you may want to go get into. And I'm not talking about job function, because I know everyone has kind of different majors, and they, you know, you can be an accountant in the, like, for a company doing things in the cloud. Um, you can do, you know, any sort of job. I'm just saying that overall that industry is growing a lot. It's growing here in Atlanta, and so is cybersecurity. And regardless of what you want to do, those are two things I would heavily consider as far as, you know, those next steps and kind of planning what you would like to do. Or if you're planning on building your company, I would definitely plan on leveraging one of those two tools. We kind of already covered how it can help your startup, but, you know, securing migration funds is easy. You know, if anyone has questions on, you know, hey, I want to build something, how do I take advantage of the funds available to me through AWS or Azure? Definitely email me. I can help you out with that. You know, I think it's like $200,000 or something like that that AWS will give you over a period of like 10 years to build your startup. So, you know, as you're consuming all these different services to build whatever it is you're trying to deliver to your customers, there's a lot of funds available to take advantage of for those types of things. And then, yeah, just kind of back to the point of, you know, whatever your goals are. I know this is, you know, the same as having a room and kind of being able to go around and open a dialogue. But my contact information's in here, so feel free to reach out to me. I'm a resource to all of you, whether it's a technology question or a startup question, as you look to kind of build your companies out and things of that nature. I'm available, highly available all the time via email. So my contact information is right here, and I think Erica has it as well. So we can send that out to people, and, you know, if there's anything that you need, connect with me on LinkedIn, shoot me a text, email me. I'm just, you know, I'm highly available. That's what I've got.
Awesome, awesome. Well, we have a couple questions here for you. The first question is, what are some of the best systems you recommend to keep information?
It would depend on what kind of information they're talking about. So you've got databases, you have servers and storage and things of that nature. I would say that's a very good question. It's broad, and if I know a little kind of information that they're trying to keep, whether it's personal or something specific they're trying to do, um, that's definitely, you know, one of those. We can take it offline. I'd be happy to.
Well, let's see if we can we've got plenty of time. Fatima, go ahead and unmute yourself. Would you like to expand a little more of what you were asking with that question? Did you have some particular type of information in mind? She probably has her. Oh, go
Can you
ahead.
hear me?
We sure can.
Okay. Okay. I was thinking specifically like client information, because I know that there are different types of CRMs out there. But I was also wondering, like, when you compile those type of databases, and it may have maybe some personal and statistical information,
Yeah.
and what should you not be accessing from, you know, like your cell phone? Because I was also told that, you know, there's just certain information you should not be accessing, you know, mobilely, you know. So I was wondering.
So I think where you start is what level of privacy and security do you owe to your customers, right? So if it's healthcare data, if it's financial data, those are all different things. And then beyond that, it's not like every startup is expected to be like, for instance, us in healthcare. We're a small startup. We can't be HIPAA compliant. We don't have a HIPAA compliance officer. We don't have money for that kind of thing, right? But it's what's reasonable, right? So, for instance, if it's payment data, a lot of that kind of thing, if you leverage services like Stripe or Shopify, a lot of the liability there and the customer data is actually held by them, not necessarily you. So, like, I would say if you're holding payment data, on your own, right? I would look into some sort of third-party software like a Square or Stripe or something like that and offload that responsibility and that liability to them. If it's client personal information, like, just their contact info and things like that, I think, again, from that perspective, if you're looking more like a management tool, CRMs are good. Like on Microsoft has one called Dynamics. Like Salesforce probably isn't the most pragmatic thing right now, but yeah, Microsoft Dynamics is good. And then I think another one that small businesses use called Pipedrive is pretty good as far as a CRM goes. But yeah, it depends on what kind of data you're collecting from your clients and what how you're interacting with it, right? I mean, if you could tell me a little bit more about that, then I could probably tell you exactly what you
Do you know, Hollis, is there a guide or like a rule of thumb out there that says, if you're collecting payment information, these are the things this is the level. Is there some sort of
need.
tool?
Yeah, so that would be PCI. So you have different regulatory compliance frameworks that are in place for different things, right? So you have PCI, and then there are different flavors of PCI compliance. So, like NCR and BB&T have a different compliance requirement for PCI than, say, we did selling customers a software product. And like I said, a lot of on the payment side, most lean and mean kind of startups, you want to outsource that to like a Square or a Stripe or the two I would really recommend, or Shopify if it's a physical product. But they can kind of take the brunt of that liability for you and process those payments for you. I mean, essentially, that's what their whole business model is, to be a payment processor for people like us. Now, from the healthcare side, you're looking at HIPAA and high trust, but again, they're different. Well, HIPAA is not really a compliance framework; it's a law. But yeah, there are different frameworks out there. It just depends on what you're looking for. And then those frameworks act as kind of the guide or rule of thumb for how you should be handling that data, or those best
And it
practices, right?
looks like nothing's popping up on the front page, but it looks like if we dig into PCIsecuritystandards.org, it looks like those things that you're talking about could possibly be on their main
Yeah.
website. PCI Security
PCI
Standards.
is a mess, and I would not recommend trying to tackle it yourself. And I don't think anyone's particularly going to, at the startup level, no one's going to expect you to be PCI compliant. It takes hundreds of thousands of dollars to address PCI compliance, but there are certain things you can do. Like I said, if you're not, that'd be like if you want to process your client's payments yourself, right? Versus using like a third party there, then you don't have to worry about it. But yeah, these are really good questions. Yeah.
And then Fatima's second question was about, accessing. Is there anything she should not access on her phone? Are there some hot things that you say absolutely you should not do X on your phone as a CEO? Anything come to mind?
Client personal data, unless you have a medium to access it through, right? I genuinely, like, I don't, a lot of people do this that I work with, but CRM, like, I would access that through the web. Just because, like, if you're using a CRM, you probably have your client's data in there, even just their names, phones, and addresses and whatnot. But overall, in general, people's phones are fairly secure. You can get good free mobile security products. Like, I think Checkpoint, they had one it was called like Zone Alarm or something at one point. But I would recommend getting an endpoint agent for your phone. I mean, I think McAfee probably has a free one. There's probably a lot of free stuff you can take advantage of through Georgia State like that. Cisco has one as well. But yeah, just as far as what not to access, I think if you, the rule of thumb, right? Like if you think it might be something that you don't want out there, then don't access it through your phone, right? So, oh hey, I'm gonna go look at my customer. Good example. Customer provides you a credit card number via text message. They texted it to you. It's there. So then what do? I would go get on the web and then transfer that information to your payment system via the web if you're making a payment for them or something, versus just I'm going to copy and paste it and do it on my phone real quick. Like, now you've taken their credit card information, put it into another third-party software on your phone. You kind of like brokered that whole exchange of information. So yeah, stuff like that I would avoid using the phone for. And then, again, just doing the 30-minute, like take it 30 minutes and get like a password wallet, kind of do an audit of all those things. That's really where people got, so to speak. It's fairly easy to crack like low security passwords. Usually if you take I think people think a strong password has to look like an encrypted string, which is just like a bunch of upper and lowercase letters and numbers and symbols. That's not necessarily true. Like if I'm going to use Bracy as an example, you might do, lowercase b, capital R, AC, 3Y, exclamation point. That's a secure password. Like you can use the dog, like use your dog's name. It's not that big of a deal, but kind of change the case sensitivity of the letters, and then change some things out for maybe like a clever characters like asterisks or percent signs and things like that. But that's genuinely the pathway to a secure password, right? Like uppercase, lowercase, number, symbol. You're pretty good at that point. There's not much more you can do aside from use a password wall.
Yes, thank you, Fatima. Those were two really, really good questions that I don't think we've gotten before. So I made a note. We're going to ask those going forward. Anissa has a question. Anissa, I have unmuted you. So if you would be so kind as to ask your question, ma'am.
Okay. Hi, Mr. Hicks. So earlier you mentioned that cybersecurity and the cloud network would be good companies to consider for career opportunities after graduation. What companies would you recommend us researching and maybe submitting resumes to, or, networking, and what companies would you recommend just for career opportunities?
That's a really good question. There's a lot of them that come to mind. Like that, I'm sitting here thinking like, where would I want to work if I didn't work where I work?
What's your top three, if that's not too much?
I think some of the best companies in Atlanta in the technology field that are, well, from a security perspective, like Ionic Security is a great one.
Ionic, okay.
Yeah, Ionic is good. Someone private messaged me a question about becoming an ethical hacker, and I can kind of combine those two as well. Felix did. Felix, one, take Security Plus and get a CEH, Certified Ethical Hacker, and if you can, try OSCP is another certification that if you have that one, you'll walk in the door, 120K a year. But the first question, SecureWorks is a really good one. Dell SecureWorks, if you're on the technology side of things, that's a good one to start at. Bishop Fox is kind of a higher end one. They're good too. But for general positions like Ionic Security, MailChimp is a huge, like great cloud-enabled company. People love working there that I know. I mean, they're scaling like crazy. Their founder is like the coolest person I think ever. So like he built MailChimp on like they never raised any money, and they're $1 billion company.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I mean he's awesome guy. But MailChimp I would highly recommend. Let me think of something else that's like out there. There's a lot of like professional service firms like mine at Adapture, or like another one is like ReluTech is a big one, and they've kind of split into some different venues. But service providers are great to work at. Like where I work, our consulting firm, if most people get to look at the technology type stuff from their lens, I get to see it across all these different companies. So I can go to one company and say, hey, this is what they did over at, like for instance, the payment processing, like 70% of global credit card payments are processed in Atlanta. So NCR, Global Payments, TSYS, Fiserv, First Data, all of these companies are clients of ours. So when I go to Paya, is a new company that I'm trying to earn their business, and they're like, why should we work with Adapture? I'm like, well, I can tell you how NCR solved your problem, or I can tell you how Global Payments solve your problem. But that industry is huge, and working at a service provider gives me the ability to kind of see it across all of those. So yeah, Adapture, Centrix IT is our sister company, and then Relutech is a good one. There's a lot of good firms like that in Atlanta as well. There's a huge footprint kind of thing. So I would say if you want three, I would say look into overall just like service providers. I can give you kind of the names of those. And then for like a software startup company, cloud enabled, I would say MailChimp is probably like, to me, the coolest. Like I love them. And Ionic Security is from ATDC. They're a Georgia Tech startup. Paul Judge started them, and he runs Tech Square Labs, a big venture firm here in Georgia. And Ionic is one of the companies that came out of there. He started it. They're a really, well-renowned, good security firm as well. So yeah, any companies like that, I mean, they're, like we laid a couple people off because of COVID, but what I've seen happen to clients, I mean, I've seen some companies just devastated by this. So one thing I'm thankful for is that, in the industry I'm in, like there's a lot of job security. I haven't had to worry about, oh, are we going to do this or do that? Like it's, my clients are still in business. They still have to support their applications. They still have to service their customers. So, that's just, it's something I would have never really thought about before the COVID thing, right? Like, I mean, everyone thinks about job security, but overall, just like resiliency of the industry you're working in the market, because, can a disease take this company out of business? Can, that kind of stuff where, those are definitely things that I think the technology industry is, as a whole, is kind of insulated from. These companies I mentioned are, to my knowledge, doing fine. So.
Okay, good point. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
No problem. Thank you. Yeah, then Felix on the ethical hacker, I'm going to type. Oh, hang on. I think he sent it to me privately. That is why I don't see it. So.
See that question.
Certifications for ethical hacker. Security plus CP if possible. Yeah, those are good ones. Yeah, these are great questions. And thanks everyone for joining too. I know that, things are weird right now. We're video conferencing everyone. It's, we're overall, like we're dealing with an obscure time and it calls for kind of obscure solutions, but I appreciate everyone getting together. I'd rather be together in person, but the fact that we're getting all these great questions that, thank all of you for jumping on. As we work through this, again, you have my contact info. Any help I can be to anyone, feel free to reach out. I was telling Ms. Bracy earlier that I have a client who's working directly with like the White House task force on COVID. They're an AI healthcare company. And, they're saying that, we're really just biding our time for a vaccine vaccine for the virus. And that, we're going to start seeing it pop up in other cities as soon as we kind of alleviate restrictions and things of that nature. And states are going to start independently kind of not opening back up, so to speak, but relieving some of the restrictions in place, like shelter in place will probably be, not done away with, but redefined, right? They'll start doing things like that to try to ease everyone back into the economy. I think that the restaurant stuff will start to, maybe restaurants will open up, but there'll be, more strictly enforced capacity limits or things of that nature, right? So I think we're on the way from what he was telling me, but it's going to be, this is a weird time, but we're all working through it. So anyway, that's my piece on COVID. I feel like I'd be remiss to do this and not give a COVID thing. So
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like you said, as we were chatting before we got started, the one thing that this has done has forced all of us, all generations, from kindergarten all the way through PhD program, and like you said, Fortune 500 companies, it has forced everyone to get online, which now is increasing the necessity to be educated with cybersecurity issues. Because if we are now all going online and working more remotely, then the bad guys are just like, yes, they're just
100%. Yeah, we talk about attack footprint, the attack surface getting larger, and the landscape of vulnerabilities, it's huge. They know that everyone's online, they're on their home network, and a lot of people are on their home network accessing a corporate network, and that's not great, right? Like if I get your little home PC and your home set up and hack you there, which is easy, now I can propagate into the corporate network from you. So it's changed. There's been a lot of work around that. Shortages are huge right now. I mean, like just in general, laptops, it's insane. Like 3 weeks ago, try to find 1,000 laptops somewhere. It's not happening. Like they weren't there. So the market for those was really tight. Headsets, because call centers all went remote. I'm sure if any of you had to call Comcast over the last 3 weeks, it's like, we'll call you back in 12 hours. It's kind of there because they don't have enough people. They can't, they don't have headsets at home or whatever. And I think people are kind of getting in front of it now, but it's changed the way all of us work. It's increased the vulnerability landscape for each of us for sure. But at least I will say with Georgia State, with you all being on Cisco WebEx, is probably the best product you could be on. So.
Okay. And then as these young entrepreneurs, again, are trying to stand up and, work through their startups, just be prudent about the things that they're doing right now. Just be more aware and be more conscious about, I guess, something as simple as a password, right?
Absolutely. And I think another piece of advice I would give is when you're talking to customers, from what I'm hearing, like I just would abstain from using COVID in like subject lines or in communication overall. I mean, if you're on the phone talking to people, definitely if your product ties into that somehow, bring it up. But emailing people and being like, how are you doing through COVID? Hope you're fine. Like people are really not responding well to that from what I hear in the market. So just tidbit on how focus that people are trying, everyone wants to get back to work and back to business, right? So, I think we had probably the first 2 weeks of this, everyone was like, "Woo, vacation." And then, now, everyone's trying to get back into the swing of things. So, don't be afraid to change the way that you're reaching out to people. Videos are great. Like if you're trying to go, find people to test your product or your service or get, some advice from them on how to build it out, send them a quick video or things like that. Those are great. People are very wary of links right now, though. So embed the video.
Right, absolutely.
Don't send a link.
Absolutely.
And hover over the link if you get one.
Any other questions from you guys? Felix, Fatima, Anissa, Fung, any other questions? I don't see any other hands raised. This was awesome. Hollis, thank you, thank you, thank you. If we were in front of you, of course, I'd ask everyone to give you a standing round of applause. So you have to take the virtual one from me.
Awesome. I would be embarrassed, so I'm glad.
We appreciate you. I thank you so much for doing this for us. Again, cybersecurity is not one of the top things that these young startups think about. So that's why I appreciate you helping me keep this on the front of everyone's mind. And, like everyone's saying, we're going to get through this together. So thank you so much. I hope you and your family and the rest of the employees at Adapture stay safe over these next several weeks and you guys be productive. I've got all your contact info. The guys that are on the session today, they saw it on the screen. Hopefully they wrote it down. If not, they know how to find me and I'll be able to happy to connect you to them.
Absolutely. Thank you. I look forward to seeing you all in person soon.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, so you be safe. Thank you so much. All right, team, you guys saw the rest of the events that are coming up. As always, stay safe, be well, stay home, wash those hands. Thank you. Till next time. Bye-bye.